guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about my job search and the updates I have about that. And I've got a couple different interviews that I've done in the last week or so, so I want to share with you how those have gone and what they were like. So in the last about week and a half, I've had a demo lesson that I've done, and then I had an interview earlier this morning. And I was supposed to have another one tomorrow, but we'll get to that later on. First, what I want to talk about is the demo lesson that I did, and then later on I'm going to talk about the interview that I had today. They actually gave me the sheet that had all the questions on it, so I was going to go over that with you and talk to you about how the demo lesson went and how I think that overall interview went, and the interview that I had today as well, and kind of tell you what my next steps are in my job search. For the demo lesson, what happened was I got an email from the school that I was interviewing at, and they told me that they wanted me to come in and teach a lesson for them to observe to a class of their actual students. So they sent with it an attached letter. I'm not going to show you the actual letter because it's got their name written all over it, but I'm just going to read it to you. It says, "Greetings, congratulations, you've been selected to progress to the next phase of our interview process. For the next task, we would like you to teach a demonstration lesson to our scholars." And then it said, "Here are the details of the lesson that we would like you to teach." So unlike the previous one that I taught, they actually gave me a specific lesson and topic they wanted me to teach. So what they said was the grade is kindergarten, there are about 22 students, and then they gave me a standard of blend vowel-consonant sounds orally to make words or syllables. And then they told me that the length of the lesson should be between 30 and 45 minutes. They also gave me some details on when my lesson would take place, and that I should submit all of my lesson plans and additional pages to them by 6 p.m. the previous evening. And then they just went on to attach a rubric that they wanted to use for my observation, and then they sent this to me just so I could look over it and decide if I want to make changes based on what I knew they were specifically looking at. So those are the items that they sent me before my lesson. So now I'm going to actually walk you through the lesson that I did. So as I've previously mentioned, I don't really have a whole lot of experience teaching kindergarten students or that level. And I did have my previous demo lesson. The previous lesson that I taught for another interview was also kindergarten, and it was also English language arts, which are areas that I didn't really have that much experience in. So with this lesson, I decided to go pretty straightforward and just teach a basic lesson. And it wasn't very exciting, but you know, it got the job done. So I'm just going to walk you through what I did and what activities I had the students do, and then I'm going to talk about how I think it went, and then we'll move on to my interview I had today. As I'm going through my lesson, I'm going to put up parts of it right here so that you can kind of see what I'm talking about, and that way I don't have to like show you the actual paper. So what I did is I went into the classroom and I had a set of alphabet cards. They were like 3 by 4 inches, so like this big. And I had each letter of the alphabet on each card, and each one I had put a piece of magnetic double-sided tape on it, and that way it would stick to the whiteboard that they had in the classroom. So they had just one of those easel whiteboards, and I passed out the cards to the students. Once the kids each had a card, I had also drawn a table up on the whiteboard for them, and on one side it had the word vowel at the top, and at the other side it had the word consonant. So the task I gave the students was to I dismissed them slowly, so there's only a couple students at the whiteboard at a time, but I told them, I'd like you to go up to the whiteboard and put the letter on the side that you think it belongs. So whether you think your letter is a vowel or a consonant, just go ahead and place it on that side of the table. And they did a really great job with that. We had a couple students who were struggling with where to put their letters, but it was really great because some of the kiddos were helping each other up there at the whiteboard. Most of the letters made it to the right place, but I still reviewed when we had all the letters on there. I said, okay, if we look at all these, which letters are vowels? Instead of going through each letter and saying, is this correct? Should it be moved? So I just kind of decided to change that part and instead say what letters are vowels, and we kind of reviewed it that way. So once we had done that, we reviewed all the letters, which ones were vowels, which ones were consonants, and then I started building letters. I started pulling letters, and at first I did a U and a G, and what I did is I put them next to each other to make UG, and I had the students help me sound that out. So they sounded that out and we pronounced it together, and we worked on that for a minute or two, and then I brought down the letter B and I ran it all together to make the word bug. We pronounced that and sounded it out and did a couple more letters such as mug, rug, dug, things like that. And once they got the hang of that, I asked them to give me another letter that we could also put in front of UG to make another word, and we practiced that again. And then I gave the directions for a worksheet that I had created, and this is where I'm going to start putting photos up so you can see what my lesson plan actually looked like. What I told the students before I gave them the worksheet was that the worksheet I have is something I'd like you to complete on your own, and I told them that they could whisper at their table just because I didn't want it to get too rowdy, but the worksheet I gave them was pretty straightforward, and I showed them how to do the first example, which you can see. It was for the word tag. So originally, if the T wasn't there, they would have been provided with the letters A and G to make ag, tag. And that was a vowel consonant blend that they needed to add a letter to. But because this was the example, I added the word T to make the word tag. So once that was done, I showed them that I had also drawn a picture of a tag, or inserted a photo of a tag, into the box next to it, and then I told them, you are going to go on to the rest of the pages in this worksheet, and I'd like you to make the words yourself. So there were vowel consonant blends like AT, IG, AP, AN, ED. There was like 10 of them that I gave them. And this worksheet had boxes next to each one so that they could also draw a picture of the word. And the main reason I wanted them to draw a picture of it was because I wanted them to practice thinking of words that actually made sense, words that they could actually think of something. Because a lot of students did, there was OG was another one that they could do on here, and instead of saying like dog or hog, they were putting like a Q, and so it was QOG, and I'm like, I don't know, I would go up to them, I said, cog, or, kyog. I was like, I'm not sure if I know what that is. Do you know what one looks like? And they would kind of say, no, I don't really. And I said, okay, let's try and think of a word that we could actually draw a picture of. And that seemed to help a lot of students because they started to think of words that they knew that had those letters in them. So that was helpful. And once they started doing that, they worked really well and they were really quiet and they came up with some great work. And after they were all done, I told them, okay, now draw all your pictures. And we had some really cute pictures. It was really nice to see lots of little dogs that were little like U shapes. It was very cute. So they did that, and that went pretty well. At this point, I only had about 5 to 10 minutes left of my lesson that I was going to teach. And it was all really the wrapping up and then, talking about what this means, how we use it. So once they were done coloring, I actually had them draw all their attention back to me at the front, and I had my copy of the worksheet underneath the projector so they could all see it, and we went through some of the words ourselves. So for instance, I pulled up the AT one, and I said, okay, I'd like one of our friends to share with me what letter they put in the blank, and when a student raised their hand, they gave me the letter they put, I put it in mine, we all sounded it out together, and this was to help us practice the standard of orally sounding and blending out the letters to create words and syllables. So we did that for all of the 10 vowel consonant blends I had given them, and what I did is I made sure that every student got to share one, so that way I had at some point had each and every one of the students orally blend a vowel consonant in front of me so I could actually hear them and get that little bit of informal assessment for my standard. So we did that, and then we shared a few of our pictures underneath the document camera, and the students had a lot of fun, and then I wrapped up my lesson and it was time for me to go. And yeah, so now I'm going to talk to you about how I think it went. Because of the fact that I didn't have very much previous experience teaching kindergartners, I felt like the lesson didn't go too terribly. I would say I've definitely had lessons that felt like they got away from me more than that, during my student teaching time. But in general, I think it went pretty well. The only thing that happened towards the end of the lesson that kind of discouraged me a little bit was that one of the teachers who was observing me kind of called the students back to attention. So because they are very strict there, they have very strict rules on how the students are supposed to be sitting, what they're supposed to be doing, where their pencils go, how silent they're supposed to be, and they're very well behaved students. However, it is somewhat difficult going into someone else's classroom and teaching for 30 minutes and being expected to know how to handle the students and what to tell them so that they are behaving in the same way that they would normally be expected to do so. So personally, I thought it went really well. I was just a little bit caught off guard when she called them back to attention. I definitely wouldn't have had problems getting their attention, but I personally wasn't at the point where I felt that I needed to, stop everything and get their attention. So that was one thing that happened. But overall, I think it went pretty well. I should have stuck to my lesson plan a little bit more, and I could have gone a little bit longer, which I think in the long run could have been helpful for the students. And I think they could have done with maybe a little bit more hands-on work with the blending of the vowel-consonant blends, but I think it went well, and the teachers seemed happy with it, and the students had fun, and they were really cute, and it was kind of a fun experience to have because I haven't been in the classroom for a while. So that was how the lesson went, and they said goodbye and I left, and I haven't heard anything yet, but it was also the last week of school for them, so I know that they're pretty busy, so I will definitely keep you updated on that. But now I want to talk about the interview I had today. Now I want to talk about today's interview and how that went and what it was like, because I actually have the questions that they asked me. So it was at a different charter school, and it was at one of the actual locations of the charter schools that I did a previous interview for. The previous one I did was with the test where I wrote the introduction letter, graded an essay, and did a grade calculation. So this is the same district, but it was at an actual location. So when I got there, I met with the principal and the vice principal, as well as another teacher who I would be working with if I were to be hired at the school. And on the way to the interview room, the principal informed me that the position they were currently interviewing for was a self-contained 7th grade teacher position, which means I would be teaching all of the subjects by myself. We went into the actual classroom where I would be teaching, which was kind of fun to see. It was interesting. It was a portable that was split into 2 classrooms, and we were on one side of it, and it was a fairly small room that we were in, which it was smaller than other portables I've been in, but there was one side, and then he said the other side would also be your classroom, so you would be able to use both sides of it. And I didn't get to see the other side, but it would be a pretty good space because I would also have an assistant, and I would be able to split up the class into 2 different groups that would, have separate instruction if needed. So we got into the room, and he also informed me while we were waiting for the other teacher that if it was a job I would be taking, there would be about 35 students, and it would be basically their whole entire 7th grade that I'd be teaching, which I also thought was interesting. As you may know, I wasn't exactly looking at doing like a 7th grade position, but I'm actually really excited about it if I did get the job. So that would be really fun. I think it would be a different kind of challenge, and knowing the fact that I was offered a 7th grade math position in the past makes me feel a little bit more ready to do this kind of position. So that was the basics of it. Once the other teacher showed up, I was told that she was the 8th grade teacher, so I'd be working directly with her because she would be, kind of my grade level partner or, grade band partner. But anyway, they gave me this paper, and I'll show you the questions up next to me. And there were, I think, 13 questions, but one of them was kind of funny. They said, number 11 says, K-8 only, what is your preferred grade level? And they're like, we're just going to skip that one today because it's only for 7th grade. They're like, so hopefully it's 7th grade. I'm like, yep, it was 7th grade all along. That's what it was, exactly. So that was one of the questions, but it wasn't really needed for this. But I want to go through the rest of them because they were different questions, but they were definitely good ones, and I think they're important to, tell you what they were like. In this video, I just want to read through the questions that they asked me. I'm not going to tell you how I answer them just because I would like to do that in a different video in which I can compile a larger list of questions and actually tell you how I answer them specifically. But for this one, I just want to read you the questions that they asked me. So the first one was, what inspires you to teach? The second one was, share a few highlights about your background. Third one was, what's the biggest challenge in teaching today? The fourth one was, why do you want to teach here, and what do you know about the programs that we offer? The next one was, how do you get to know your students both academically and socially? Then how do you connect your lessons to the real world? How would you establish and maintain good communication with the parents of your students? How do you know your students are learning? So what does informal assessment look like for you? Number 9 was a specific one. They said 85% of your students demonstrate mastery of learning for a particular skill. However, the other 15% do not. How do you address that? And then the next one was, what does innovation in education look like to you? There was the question about what grade I'd want to teach. Number 12 was, if you could take your students on a field trip anywhere and money wasn't an obstacle, what would you do? And then the last one was, do you have any questions or anything you want us to know that we didn't discuss? So I thought some of these questions were very unique, and I got kind of stumped on the field trip one, so that was interesting. But those are the questions they asked me. It was a fairly quick interview. I think I was out of there in about 25 minutes with the whole thing. So I know that I do talk fairly quickly when I am doing an interview, probably about this pace. So I get through the questions pretty fast. But it went really well. I think there was, me, the vice principal, and the principal, and the other teacher, and we all got along really well, and it was, just kind of a casual conversation, but, formal interview-wise. So I think it went really well. I'm excited. They said I would hear back from them next week. They were doing all the interviews today, so hopefully about now they're thinking about hiring me, but we'll see. But that is what's been going on today. I was supposed to have an interview tomorrow, like I mentioned previously. Unfortunately, the school had to cancel it at the moment just because of budget matters going on. But hopefully in the future, I'll be able to share that with you and maybe a job offer. So that is it for right now. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. I am going to be giving you lots of info on student teaching, lots of info on interview questions, interview tips, all in my next videos. And this next week is the cruise, so there's going to be lots and lots of videos coming to you about that. So stay tuned, hit the subscribe button so you are ready to see those videos when they come out. Hit the bell to get notifications when they do come out, and hit the like button to help support my channel. And I will see you in the next one. Bye!